Okay, good evening.
Down to find it.
Welcome, everyone. We already, before we went into executive session, we did our Pledge of Allegiance and agenda review. So we are now reconvened into open session. For those of you following along on the agenda, where it actually, we've completed the item 9 and moving on to item 10, which is our first opportunity for public comments. If I could, please, I'd like to just read a quick introduction. And by the way, my name is Steve Lohr. I'm not the board president or vice president, who are both not here tonight, so I'm acting chair for this evening as past board president. Welcome to the Board of Education regular meeting. The school board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of the meeting when recognized by the board president or acting chair. We ask the comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time, and we ask the comments begin by providing your name, address, and the school district in which you reside, in case you're not here in Webster Groves School District. So, does anyone have public comment? If you do, please feel free to step to the podium and introduce yourself. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our communications, recognitions, and information. We're going to start with our celebrations from board members. I'll start to my left tonight. Dr. Stricker? None passed, okay. Jean?
I just wanted to say how proud I am that we have such a great enrollment in summer school. It's up significantly from past years, and I think it's a great way to avoid the summer slide. But I hope other students would do summer reading programs or other activities to keep your brains sharp. And I'd like to congratulate the girls soccer team and all of our boys and girls track. We had a very nice season.
Excellent. Joe?
I was going to comment on soccer as well, on the track, so nothing
Very
else.
good, double up on that.
Sorry.
Mr.
No,
Addison?
I'm nothing else.
Nothing else? Okay. I'll add a couple real quickly. I'd like to thank Dr. Wiley and the folks that were involved in the new teacher orientation. I did this last summer, and we took a bus tour around with the new folks, and unfortunately it was my last day of vacation. I was in Seattle and couldn't participate this year, but I heard everything was very nicely done again this year, and I've got it on my schedule for next year to make sure I'm in town for that, because it was really a fun time last year, and saw some pictures on Facebook and things like that, so we're really glad to welcome our new teachers to the district. And also, for those of you who are going to be around for the 4th of July, we're going to have lots of representation in the Community Days Parade. Several of our state champion and district champion and successful folks from the high school are going to be leading the parade, and of course our band will be there. And so get your spot early. I think some chairs are even out somewhere along the way. So I was born and raised here, and that's just crazy, even for people like me who've been here forever, to have chairs already out. But we'll move along to celebrations from administrators.
Thank you. Kathy,
Dr.
do you have any to
Simpson.
list?
I've got one. Chris Moore, who's going to be a senior next year at the high school, took 3rd place at the Skills USA National Competition in Infotech. He's also one of our tech helpers who visits Pacific Place on Tuesdays. You've met him before, and that's Diane Moore's stepson.
Very neat. Also have one other before we get into some of our honorees tonight. Also, we have Tony Arnold has made a decision. St. Louis University started a program where they have different educators coming in, administrators from Saudi Arabia, and they were in a couple districts this year, and then I kind of put it out to administrators, and Tony was interested. So next year, for a pretty short period of time in the fall, he'll have a Saudi Arabian administrator who kind of is like a student teacher, if you will. But we'll have a number of Saudi Arabian educators who I will tour through the district, I think 25 at a time in August. Tomorrow I'll speak, I'll give a presentation of our district to the group that's present. So just kind of wanted to celebrate Tony for taking on that opportunity. It's really cool. We'll definitely both benefit from that experience and hope to expand it the following year. I also wanted to acknowledge the girls soccer team. Unfortunately, Kathy worked with Coach Champion to try and get them here tonight, but there was just too much of a conflict and people out of town for that to work out, but we will honor them in the fall. They just had the day dedicated them in the city. I got to go to the state championship. I wasn't able to see the track because I was moving that weekend, but I got to go to the girls soccer with my daughter who's 10, and it was really an incredible experience. And probably my most proud moment was when the girls, they had won the semifinal in a shootout, which is an incredibly exhilarating, amazing experience. And whereas most teams, it would just be natural to tumble onto the field screaming, they were very kind of humble and just caught, just in how they approached it, because the goalie who had just got scored in was still in the net, obviously very upset. It was an incredibly hard-fought game. And the girls just were so classy in how they did it. And I was so proud, and I was so proud that my daughter got to see that. So that was really neat. So I didn't get to see the girls track team who were here to honor tonight, but they had a collective and amazing experience at the state competition this year, finishing third. We had a lot of individual highlights from people, including somebody who shattered a school record of many years. And I'm going to introduce Heather Kelly, who is the coach, who will introduce some of the coaches, the students, and they'll talk about their experience this year as well at the state competition. So please, yeah, come on up. And if you could go to the mic so it kind of helps people hear.
I usually don't talk very loud, although some of the girls may beg to differ. Okay, so yeah, this team had a lot of incredible accomplishments this year. They won our district meet for the third year in a row, and I'm not sure that's ever happened for girls track at Webster. Then the next week they won the sectional meet for the second year in a row. And then, like you said, they got third at state, May 26th and 27th. It was the best finish by a girls track team at Webster since 1983. And they hadn't placed, we hadn't placed in the top 4 since 1996. And at the state meet, the top 4 teams get the big trophies and everything. So we hadn't won a trophy since 1996. There are 19 events in track and field. We qualified girls in 9 of the 19 events. We had 11 girls go, one of whom was a relay alternate. But we scored team points and medal, which means you finish in the top 8 in every one of the 9 events that we competed in. And every girl won at least 1 medal. So those are what I'm most proud of, that every single girl won a medal, and we scored in every one of our events. So everyone peaked at the exact right time, which is obviously what you want to happen. We only have 1 senior in the group, and she's going to go on and run for Truman State. So kind of bodes well for us next year that we only have 1 graduating. The girls endured an almost 6-hour rain delay on Saturday, which is the second day of the meet. And we still had 5 events to go that we were competing in after that rain delay. So as we all got to know each other really well in the cafeteria of Jeff City High School for 6 hours. So they did really well after having to sit through that rain delay. So just to kind of highlight some of the biggest things. So sophomore Nia Lyles, who is here tonight, she was our lone state champion. She won the shot put with 41 feet 8 1/4 inches, which was a little more than a foot farther than the second place girl. Wow. And earlier in the season, she had broken her own school record with a throw of 43 feet 11 inches. And in addition to winning the shot put, she was also second in the discus at state. And in the process of getting second, she broke a school record that dated back to 1980. She threw 130 feet 4 inches, and she beat the old record by 3.5 feet. And so she's only a sophomore.
Wow.
And last year as a freshman, she was second in the shot put and 5th in the discus. So this year she was 1st and 2nd. We had 3 girls who won 3 medals. We had a freshman, Angelina Arenze, who is here. She was 2nd in the 4x200 relay, 3rd in the 4x400 relay, and then 4th in the 300 hurdles.
Wow.
And like I said, she's only a freshman, so
Awesome.
she's close to the 300 hurdle school record. So we hope to see that one go away next year, right? Sophomore Molly Nash, who's she was also second in the 4x200 relay, so she was one of those. Third in the 4x400 relay, was on that team, and then she was fifth in the 400 meters. Junior Whitney Clark, who I just saw come in, she's sitting She was also part of the second place 4x200 relay, the third place 4x400 relay, and then she was part of the 4x100 relay team that was sixth. And then we have three other girls who won 2 medals. One of them is junior KK Rodriguez, and I don't think she's here. She also plays on the basketball team, so she's a very good athlete. She was second in the 4x200 relay and sixth in the 4x100 relay. And she had injured her hamstring the week before state, so we were kind of wondering if she was going to be able to compete, and she did very well. Sophomore Nia Lyles, we've already talked about her accomplishments with her 2 medals, and then another freshman, Emma Kelly, who's right there. And I don't know if you saw the article in the Western Kirkwood Times about, and then it had the picture, and then he put in parentheses, no relation to the coach. So her names are spelled the same way, but we are not related. She was third, she was part of the 4x400 relay team, and then she was seventh in the 800 meters also. Then we had 4 girls who each won 1 medal. Junior Daria Clark, there she is, back there. She was part of the 6th place 4x100 relay team. We had junior Jamie Tabaron, who is not here. She was 8th in the shot put. Sophomore Gwen Booth, who I don't see, she was part of the 6th place 4x100 relay team. And then our lone senior, Emma Harrelson, right there. She was 7th in the 3,200 meters. So I was really proud of all of these girls, and they worked hard all season long, and it's a long season, and you get into the district and the sectionals, and it's 90 degrees, and it's hot at state, and then we had storms and 6-hour rain delays, and they still came out there and won a medal in every event we competed in. So I was really proud of them. There are 2 of the assistant coaches here. So Megan Burrows, she is our high jump and pole vault coach, and then Shayla Pott. She is our sprinter and hurdles coach, and I specifically coach the distance girls, so 800 meters and above. And we don't have 2 of our other assistant coaches here, our throws coach, so Nia's specific coach, and then our long jump and triple jump coach. Neither of our heroes. So, do you want any of them to come up and say anything?
Yeah, well, if any of the girls would like to share anything about their experience at state, you don't have to. It's no pressure, but.
And our lone senior is going to run at Truman State next year. Congratulations. That's awesome.
She's a state champion. And we will be in the parade this weekend, so I'm not going to put my chair out a week ahead of time, because I'll be in it this year.
My mom, she wanted me to say that I was, and I do AAU also as well. I've been doing it for 10 years. So I was voted as all Metro, if you know what that means.
Sure.
Yes, so I'm second in that, not first, but second. That's fine with me. And I'm proud to be going to Webster Girls High School.
Yeah.
That's
Well, girls, we can't be any more, proud of you and for your accomplishments. I mean, that's extraordinarily good. You're coming, we're a small school competing against a lot of, big schools around the state of Missouri, and for you guys to finish at that high level in the individual and the team competition is remarkable. And so we look forward certainly to all the youth that still remains, and we wish Emma the best as she travels on. She's been before us a few times in her career. And we just thank you. And we also want to thank you, the parents and families that support them as well, because we know that it takes a lot of your support and efforts, both to get them to the practices and the events and to support them with their homework and just being a teenager in today's world. So we can't thank you, the families, enough as well for your support of the students and your children.
And your
So,
dedication of your coaches and the
Awesome.
time that they
Yeah.
put in.
Phenomenal.
Because, they're usually there before you guys, and they're usually there after you leave, and that's a big time commitment, and they're doing it because they love the sports that they coach, and, they will make an impact on you, and you will remember your interactions with them, and you'll remember the experiences of going to state and experiences, and building upon those for those of you who can come back and set that goal even higher. I know a young lady was nodding back there as far as going to that next level next year. You got 3 more years back there to try to do that. So good for you guys. Well, and thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Do we have any more students to recognize?
As part of the next agenda item we do, but not as part of the celebrations.
Okay. Usually at this point in time, because we go on to other business and things like that, if those of you who would like to stay for that, you're welcome to. Otherwise, students and parents, if you have other things you want to get on to do tonight, you're welcome to get up and exit at this point in time. You're not going to hurt our feelings if you do. And thank you again for taking time to come visit with us. One more round of applause, guys. Thank you.
We'll be back next year.
That's what I was going to say. We'll see you next year.
See you, Tim.
Yeah, we do hope to be back next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a little slower.
Okay, so we'll move along to the next agenda item, which is the introduction to and for our student advisor of the board, Dr. Simpson.
Yeah, and I've shared with you a little bit along the way about this process. We're this district that's all about how can we give children more ownership and voice in everything, both within conversations to the classroom and in the whole overall organization. And so the board made the decision. A few of you had attended workshops around the state of Missouri, and you saw that there was a couple, 2 to 3 school districts that had a student advisor on the board that would attend and participate in board meetings. And it was through your initiation where this was conceived. I went and developed a process along with Dr. Clark to seek out applicants for this position. Went to every single sophomore, was presented with this, sophomore coming to junior, shared a little bit about it, and then we had them, anybody who was interested had to initially submit an essay talking about a little bit about themselves, why they want to be in this role, and how their voice as a representative to a student body could contribute to not just the benefit of the high school, but the overall district. We had 11 amazing students that applied. From those 11, we invited all to an interview process that we had in this room. It was myself, Dr. Clark, Mr. Ramondo, Dr. Wiley, and then we had another student, Adele, who was going to be a senior at Webster Groves High School, who participated. And we had 30-minute interviews where the kids came in, they were asked the same questions, and then after that, we kind of would process them individually as well as collectively. And tonight, I'm very excited to introduce Joe Castleman and Trinity Madison. They were consensus picks of those groups that they just kind of stood on top of very talented and inspiring group of students. Both in how their rationale for wanting to serve in this capacity, how they would represent others. It wasn't about them, it was about how am I serving my constituents, representing the voice of people they represent. And they just did incredibly well at every stage of the process. So next year, this is not they're not going to be a part of it, but again, one will serve as a participant, if you will, in some capacity at each meeting. We still have to work out how they share that role, but we'll do that this summer. So I'm really, really excited by these two. I've known them both in different capacities, both just within the school district. And so I'm excited. They're both extraordinarily wise. I think we will each benefit from their wisdom, I really do, as well as from their perspective. So I just told them I'd give them maybe 30 to 45 seconds, just anything that you wanted to say about this. No pressure, but
So hi, I'm Joe Gassman, not Trinity. So I play tennis at the high school, I'm in Boy Scouts, and I am an officer in our drama troupe. And I really had an interest in this because I really like education, and it's something that I might want to go into. And so yeah, it's just kind of a passion of mine, and when I heard about it, I was super excited, and I knew I wanted to apply. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here and do whatever I can.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Trinity. You are Trinity, not Joe.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Trinity Madison. It's nice to meet everyone. I'm also an officer of diversity for the drama department. I'm involved in the arts, and I have a passion for helping the school out. I was also involved in the Execute School Committee, if you guys kept up along with that. It's nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Trinity. We look very forward to getting to know both of you and having you participate. Thank you.
Yeah, and I told them since they weren't official, they don't have to stay for the whole time. You can stay as long as you want. Okay? Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move along to the board calendar, and specifically just we were kind of chatting informally before about our summer schedule. You'll see some calendar items. I know that on the next kind of unofficial thing is our monthly board engagements. I know on July 2nd, I know I'm going to be at St. Louis Bread, and I think Arnold and Jean, you too? Okay. And then, I don't, did we settle on who was going to do the August ones? You're going to be there? Okay. So if anybody
It
else.
was Amy as well, I thought.
I think it's
Yeah, I know
Amy.
we have
Thank you,
some.
David, I appreciate that. Yeah, so we'll make sure that, that those are covered by up to 3 of us being there. Other items, we probably will end up having to schedule a personnel-related meeting sometime in July. We'll leave that up to Amy and Emerson and John and Sherry to get that on your schedule. If you have some travel plans, like I know I do, the middle week in July, maybe you want to let John and Sherry know via email what your plans are for the month of July in case you are going to be out of town, so that way maybe work around those dates, or if you need to call in, like I know I did last year when I was in Ohio, I called in for a
Could you
meeting.
make sure that when you circulate the meeting notice that you said the number to call in?
Yes.
Because I think that
Yep.
could be likely for one or more of us.
And we'll have a good idea here this week of when we can estimate of when would be a good time for that meeting, and we'll kind of get that out there too.
Yeah. And then other items, new teacher orientation, that usually starts with a breakfast and an introduction. If you can make it up to the high school, it's usually at PV Commons, I believe. And just spend a few minutes to meeting the new teachers. I'm going to be there myself since I didn't get a chance to do the bus tour. And our opening day celebration that usually happens in Robert's Gym will be on August 8th. But we probably won't have another regular board meeting in here with a full agenda until the month of August. So just keep your eyes and ears open for those emails. Anybody else have anything to mention on board calendar related things? I believe Sherry has already taken care of us as far as the MSBA event this fall. Make sure you have that on your calendar. If you're planning on traveling or you already know what your schedule is going to be and you don't need to be there for rooms Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, let Sherry know as well if plans dictate that you won't need all 3 nights. I will plan on driving down on Thursday evening, and weather permitting, I'm going to ride the motorcycle down, so I won't be able to carpool with anybody. And unless you want to ride along behind, and we'll give you a ride down. So other than that, we'll complete our board calendar item and moved on to section 12 with discussion of relevant issues. And Jean, you attended the MSBA Leadership Forum. I believe Amy did as well. She's not here, but please give us a quick
And
debriefing.
John wasn't there because he was at soccer, but we understood that. Back there, I think we put our governance team award that we were one of 20-some
Yeah, about
districts
20,
of the
21.
28, I
511
believe.
in the state.
Yeah.
So we were recognized at a luncheon. I learned several interesting things. Some districts have a policy that school board members, after their required training, need 12 credits per 3-year term through MSBA, sessions that we all attend, as a policy, and that they cannot run for an office unless they have done that. So Amy and I were both interested in that, might discuss having something like that in our policy, just to encourage all members to do some additional training, attend regional meeting, something throughout the year to stay on top of things.
Gene, was the format of the Leadership Summit the same as it's been in the past years with breakout sessions and things like
Yeah,
that? Okay.
and it's pretty similar to the fall conference. Not nearly as large a group, but it was very informative. I learned that DESE doesn't think that full funding for early, if the legislature fully funded the formula this year, which means childhood education should get money. But they're saying that if any money is withheld by the governor, that won't happen. I thought that was interesting. So they're saying it's not that it's appropriated, it actually has to be issued. So if every penny isn't spent, they're saying that provision for early childhood will not apply. So that I thought was interesting. I also learned that charter schools are now looking at places like Moberly, trying to get support from rural legislators. So many rural legislators think that charter schools just apply to St. Louis and Kansas City, but they're thinking if they can get a foothold in some of these smaller communities to start a school. And apparently the people that are most against that are the Catholic schools across the state. Seeing that in the areas where they have enough population that a charter school could make it, they're going to get some competition. And I learned about virtual education, that Governor Greitens is really supporting virtual education, but he's citing some numbers that are not correct. Because in counting up how many schools don't have chemistry, he includes K-8. I don't know if he includes the Walter Ambrose Center, but obviously most K-8 schools would not have chemistry. So the market for virtual education might be smaller than some of the advocates are saying. So that's just a sampling of things that I learned. They did a very good session on legislative updates, and at the meeting, we've looked through the advocacy positions. They have 3 documents that they combined into one for their positions on federal, state, local legislation. So the headings are, we got this at the Melville regional meeting, but federal government affairs, we pointed out the Affordable Care Act is changing every day, so that session will need to be revised before they go to vote on this at the October, big October meeting is when we were going to vote on this.
Okay.
Anybody who has any changes to this, there is a comment period basically all summer. So I shared some concerns. If you want to see what I commented on, I'm happy to share it with you. But it's a very interesting document outlining MSBA's position on a wide variety of issues. So, any questions?
Gene, thank you for representing our district there along with Amy. That was also occurred that week I was out of town, so.
Yeah.
We'll move on then to the Radio 63119 update on the radio station, Dr. Simpson and Mr. Ellerman.
Yeah, I had sent some communication, so you'll recall that in the fall, I guess in the 15-16 school year, Sarah had been in a lot of discussions with the Webster Rockhill Ministries regarding this idea of a radio station, and wanted to somehow support it if we could. Last year, we took steps to kind of engage in more, not intense, but more specific discussions, dialogue regarding the possibility. At the time, there was support from the board for this exploration. We brought an agreement before you for early consideration. There was different thoughts that were had by the board, and then kind of it went away because the ministry ultimately found a location that was more beneficial to them. It's one of the Christian churches right at the intersection of Lockwood and Berry. But what they found out, they got far along in the process, and they found out that the position of the antenna, there was a conflict with another radio station, and the FCC said, no, you can't place it there. So then they came back to us. Well, what we did is we kind of brought this agreement back out and worked with Doug on that. Bruce and I met with the radio station folks, Ellie Wharton and Ed Johnson specifically, regarding, what they wanted to do, and we kind of worked with Doug to draft an agreement that met all of our needs. So that's what you were presented. The biggest things that were kind of notable is just one thing to highlight once again, is that we did agree to an 8-year agreement. It's listed as an 8-year, but we had the opportunity to opt out. Originally it was a 5-year. We made it an 8-year because that's their agreement for the radio station. We have an opt-out clause for, with 6 months notice, we can opt out for any reason. So we didn't think it was that big of a deal, whether it was 5 years or 8 years, because we can opt out. One of the things that we felt was important to include in the agreement, that there would be absolutely no cost to the district for this endeavor. They will pay, the electric will be separately metered. They need an interconnection. They will install their own internet. Every single cost will, and the radio station, of course, has been so supportive, and they want nothing more than to be supportive of the district. So that will all, that's all listed in the agreement as well. We kind of explored something because there was a little bit of worry about the reception having some type of interference with our phone system. We feel confident based on an engineer, telecommunications engineer, that won't occur. But also and we really won't know for certain until we are up underway. But once again, we have a provision in our agreement that says there can't be any interference with our communication system. So we feel good tonight. It's on the agenda for approval, but myself, Bruce, and Doug, who's helped with the agreement. I don't know if, Doug, if you want to add anything to it?
Good overview.
Okay.
I just want to say I'm looking forward to Radio 63119. It's nice that it's been on the internet so long that you've been able to see their interviews. But once they're actually broadcasting, I think it'll really serve the whole community.
Thank you. David?
Two things. One, I'm presuming we've no separation of church-state issues with this.
No, we're not. We're not using any district funds for any portion of it, and we're content neutral on it. I mean, we can't.
And presumably, if somebody else came and said they wanted to do the same thing, then we'd make the same offer again with all the same conditions. And somebody else wanted to start a radio station in the radio mecca of Webster Groves.
Yeah. And that's in the agreement, as you've seen, too, that says that they have to have some kind of disclaimer that says that. Okay. And they also are going to have that. They said we're going to have it for our ministries too, because we don't know who's going to take up ad space or airspace on our station. So.
Any additional questions or comments on that? That is not on the consent agenda, so we would look for someone to make a motion to approve the tower antenna lease.
Make a motion, we approve the radio station agreement, tower antenna lease.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that carries unanimously, please. Thank you very much, guys, for working on that. I think that's an outstanding community involvement and partnership, so I think that's awesome. Mr. Ellerman, you're up for the next couple budget items, 1617 and 1718. Let her rip.
Thank you. So we're wrapping up fiscal 2016-17, the first item of business before we get to talking about next year's budget. And a few housekeeping items, really, to take care of. The adjustments that are before you are really, I would almost characterize them as formalities or almost housekeeping adjustments. But I wanted to just take a minute to talk about how it's different than past practice. In the past, the district had always presented the board with a large amount of budget adjustments because part of the budget development process for the following year used to be that we would adjust, the district would adjust all of the current year expenditures and budgets to what the actuals were, and we're not doing that this year. We're retaining the budget to actual comparisons, and then we're going to take a look at what those are in just a minute, and those will be preserved through the budget records because the final budget will not match what the actuals are, and those variances then inform us as we budget for next year, as we make plans, and as we evaluate the accuracy of our budgeting process, rather than losing that by adjusting all of our budget figures to actuals in the official budget, then essentially representing the actual numbers for the district going forward. So what I wanted to do just real quickly, because obviously we haven't closed this fiscal year yet, that'll be June 30th, but we do have a very good idea of what both our revenues and our expenditures will look like at this point. Knowing that we've got another payroll that we'll have to do, we can estimate that, add them to our expenditures, knowing that there's a couple specific revenues that we are yet to receive, and we know pretty much what they are and when we'll receive them. We can adjust the actual figures to date for those. So I wanted to take a quick peek at those. So going into next year's budget, I think it would be good, because as we talk about next year's budget, if we don't know where we're winding up this year's budget, you may have a little bit of a question or uneasiness about, oh, we're approving this big budget for next year, we don't even know where we wound up the current year at. So let's take a quick look at that. Wasn't sure how visible this was going to be. I tried to summarize the current year as much as possible, both on the revenue side and the expenditure side. We'll try to increase the size of this so folks can see it a little bit better. Can folks see that? So on the operating side, our three major revenue sources where the district gets 85 cents of every dollar that the district receives on the operating side come from one of three revenue sources, and the lion's share comes from property taxes, which by itself is about 2/3 of the district's revenue. Our budget, $38.9 million. We're projecting, based on everything we've received and expect to receive through the end of the year, to receive about 38.8, almost 38.9 million. We're less than 1/4% off. And the reason for that is that the collection rate didn't quite live up to our expectations. We were expecting about a 98.1% collection rate. We got about a 97.8% collection rate. So that's the 0.3% difference in property taxes. Keep that in mind when we talk about next year's property taxes. We'll be talking about the collection rate just very briefly. State foundation formula, we were expecting $8.4 million. Please keep in mind that included 2 years worth of full-day kindergarten money, so $1 million of that was a one-time retroactive recovery of full-day kindergarten monies from 15-16, which is still in litigation. And so we did not receive that. If we had received that, we actually would have been about $400,000 over on the foundation formula. And the reason for that was that we had budgeted $6,110 as a state adequacy target. That's how much the formula pays per student, essentially. And that actually turned out to be almost $6,200. So if you take that $90 times about 4,000 students, $360,000 we received there. We had a prior year adjustment of $180 million. So if you take that, if you take those into consideration, that $360,000 plus the $180,000 basically offset some of the million that we didn't receive from the full day kindergarten. So we came in under only $500,000 there instead of $1 million. Prop C, we just about hit that one right on. However, that kind of masked a variance that was there. Same thing. We would receive Prop C on full day kindergarten, but since we haven't prevailed, we haven't settled that yet for the 15-16 year, which that student count for 15-16 is used for Prop C. That would have amounted to about $100,000. So we actually would have come in over budget if we had received full day kindergarten monies for 15-16. That would have come in about $100,000 over budget as well. In the all other category, We came in over budget about $760,000. A good portion of that was due to student activity accounts, which is just an in and out account, collect in the various fundraisers and activities. And we had budgeted $1.7 million, came in at almost $2 million, but that's an in and out. Revenues were over, expenditures was over too, but balanced. FIT is the financial institutions tax. If you recall, earlier this year we talked about how the district received about over $300,000. The year before, we received $15,000 from that source. The highest amount we had ever received for the financial institution tax was less than $100,000. There was no way to foresee that all of a sudden in a single year that would jump to over $300,000. We're still doing the forensics on that, but it's very difficult to get information from the department, the division of the Department of Revenue that distributes that money. They are reluctant to share any of that calculation to us and just reassure us that the amount we sent you is correct, but they can't really provide us any documentation as to where it came from. We're not the only one in the boat. There were 3 or 4 other districts that received substantial increases year over year in that, and everyone, no one knows exactly why that happened, but it comes from a 7% income tax on the profits of financial institutions. And you would think, well, that would be pretty easy, it's just banks, but it's not just banks. All your payday loan places, credit unions, and anyone that deals in loans or financial transactions are considered a financial institution. So it becomes a pretty big undertaking to try to figure out where the source of that came from. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on that going forward in terms of budgeting. And then full-day kindergarten refund, we had actually budgeted for a negative revenue. If we received the state monies for 15-16, it was going to trigger a refund of tuition that the district had collected of about almost $400,000. But since we didn't receive the state revenues, we didn't issue the refund. So therefore, we didn't have the negative revenue that we had budgeted for. And so that was essentially, if you take those 3 factors, that's why we were $700,000 over in the all other category. But when you total all of those revenue sources together, we were only $100,000 off on revenues, and it was $100,000 in the right direction. We collected $103,000 more than what we had budgeted. So with our rough criteria is we try to be within a 2% accuracy criteria. We were within 0.16%. So just getting closer to that really when you're talking about budgeting and projecting like this. So the revenue side looks good for the district, very solid. Expenditures, an overall observation, the negatives here being we underspent the budget. So a negative here is a good thing. We came in under budget on salaries by $300,000, which was less than a 1% variance. The benefits, $465,000 under budget. We're still doing the forensics on why that happened. That's the health insurance for medical, dental, vision, life, retirement contributions, Social Security, all of those kinds of things. And then capital projects, because it tends to be very timing sensitive, and since we're on the cash flow basis, we had a large amount budgeted for capital projects, but of course they can't begin until after school releases and we have the buildings to work with. And so most of the capital projects like the auditorium seating, the press box, the asbestos abatement at Steger and so forth down the line, we can't begin those until after school lets out, which means that we haven't completed the projects and paid for them yet. That money will carry over, that unspent money, most of that will carry over into the next year's budget, so as we can complete those projects with the money we budgeted this year. And then the all other category was very close, $64,000, about a 0.5% variance there. The total for the operating expenditures came in under budget, $1.9 million. but about $800,000 of that will be carried over to next year. So if you adjust for that, we were also, that would have been about, we came in essentially after the carryover, $1.2 million under budget, which is within our 2% criteria in terms of accuracy, and also in the right direction. We're, as part of this budget adjustment and balance transfer action item in front of you now, proposing to transfer $1.2 million of operating fund balance over to the debt service fund to help shore it up and make it cash flow self-support, cash flow self-sufficient, effective immediately. It's had to borrow money during the year for the last couple of years because the fund balance wasn't sufficient to make the September interest payments until property taxes were received in December, January. This $1.2 million transfer will eliminate the need for that inter-fund borrowing, as well as position the district to have some no tax increase bond capacity available much sooner than otherwise would have been the case. When you factor those two adjustments, the operating surplus had projected $2.8 million in the budget as it was adopted. With the actual numbers coming in, would have been $4.8 million, but if we transfer $1.2 million to the debt service fund as proposed and recognize the $800,000 that will be carried over for the building budgets and the capital projects, we'll wind up with a net operating surplus of $2,850,000, which is about exactly the surplus that we had budgeted for in the first place. So with that information, like I said, a housekeeping adjustment we need, we're asking for a $5,000 by budget adjustment to the debt service fund in order to allow for the payment of some additional banking and legal fees related to the interest payments that are made each year on those. Banks make those on the district's behalf. We pay transfer fees to those. We just didn't budget quite enough, and that would cause the debt service fund to go over budget for that fund by about $4,000. So we're asking the board to add $5,000 to the budget to cover those additional fees so that that fund doesn't go over budget. And then we're asking for the board to formally approve the classroom trust fund. That's what the CTF means in that description. To $1.2 million of classroom trust funds over the debt service fund.
Bruce, nothing that you mentioned tonight is a great shock, and we've talked about several of these things leading up to this point. I will compliment you and everyone on your staff. It's always nice to see how close people can come on things like the revenue side. When you're talking about $65 million and to be less than 0.2% off on budgeting at the total revenue line, I'm an accountant. That's great budgeting. You know, granted there's ins and outs and there's reconciling items, but that's pretty outstanding. And I've always said, you know, we need to be conservative and estimate high on expenditures, and to come, you know, that much below, that's, regardless of the reasons, that's always a good trend as well, and that allows some flexibility. So that would be my comments. Anybody else want to have questions or comments for Bruce? David?
The transfer to the debt service, so are you, is that necessary in order to cover your interest, or are you actually using that to pay down some of the bonds?
We're actually using that to supplement the debt service fund balance so that it can be cash flow self-sufficient during the year. So okay. We're not going to spend that specifically for anything. It's just allowing. But
it'll sort of it sits there so that it's available just from a timing perspective.
For the timing part of it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, Gene, anybody? Arnold?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciate you keeping the budget figures like they are for checking out next year's budget and being able to evaluate that and look at that. And I'm glad to see, and I think the community would be thrilled to know that we are really in good financial situation. And I appreciate your efforts and the efforts of your staff in helping make that occur.
Thank you. With
I'd like
that,
to make a
go
motion.
ahead. Yes, please.
For the 2016-17 fiscal year, that the Board of Education increase the debt service fund line 102 interest and fees budget by $5,000 and authorize a transfer of $1.2 million of classroom trust funds from the operating fund to the debt service fund.
Thank you, Jean. As that was the recommended board action as worded accordingly. Anyone want to second that?
Sure, I'll second.
David second. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move along to 2017-18.
Thank you. The good thing about the budget adjustment going over the financial picture year to date for this year is that it puts us in a good position going into next year. Before we get into a lot of that detail, though, I want to take this opportunity for me to acknowledge the efforts of the staff in the business office, as well as the Finance Advisory Committee. The district has a Finance Advisory Committee with several members of the community, as well as myself, Joanne Kite from the business office who's here this evening, has worked diligently with the committee as well as on the budget documents and the reports that not just in front of you today, but on a daily basis of getting bills paid and getting payroll done and getting financial reports done, investing cash and reconciling bank accounts and everything that goes along, kind of goes on behind the scenes that allows teachers to teach and for the business of instruction and education to go on. So I definitely want to publicly acknowledge the efforts of Joanne and the staff and the administration, including the building principals who we work closely with on budget and purchasing issues. You've had the budget materials for several days now, so I want to take a look at those in a more summarized form. You've had them in a lot of detail, including a budget message that itemizes what the district goals are, 10 or 12 kind of budget goals, and a lot of information that is required to be in the budget message by state DESE requirements. The adjusted levy, unadjusted levy, assessed valuations, those kinds of things. We've looked at that information before. This isn't the first budget meeting that we've had for next year. We had a multiple year, a kind of a projection meeting earlier this year, and just earlier this month, we had a session where we talked about kind of the difference between operating funds and the operating tax levy and the debt service fund and the debt service tax levy. So there's been a lot of background information that's available to you that I just want the audience to know, the folks to know that the board has for reference as we talk about this. We are going to look a little bit at the figures, though, and take this opportunity to kind of share some of the information and the good news with the board and the community. I think you may agree from looking over the materials that you've had that there's not a lot of drama and a lot of excitement in the budget but that's a good thing. You know, when it comes to financial matters, unlike matters of the heart, you don't want a lot of excitement and drama. You want some stability, some predictability, and that kind of thing. So when it comes to the budget, I think you might agree that slow and steady, notwithstanding the track team and the outcome earlier today, slow and steady doesn't win those races, but it does win the budget race.
Maybe the long distance races are a better comparison.
Yes, exactly. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But what does that look like? What does slow and steady and smart look like? And I think you can pretty much boil that down to fiscal responsibility, but then you have to define fiscal responsibility. I think fiscal responsibility means a balanced budget, some conservative assumptions, and we looked at the results of those when we were looking at how did last year turn out, and we saw that we came in a little bit over over on revenues and a little bit under on expenditures. Those hopefully weren't the result of just coincidence and good luck, but good planning and some conservative assumptions. Not too far off, and the amount that you're off is in the right direction. And so with conservative assumptions, you can help make that happen. We need to be cash flow self-sufficient. We need to have enough fund balance at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, to carry us over through the cash flow lean months of the summer until we start receiving the district's major revenue source, property taxes, in December and January. If we did not have sufficient, we have a negative cash flow. The district has a negative cash flow during the months of July, or during the months of August when school starts, teachers return, we have payrolls and expenditures kicking out then at the beginning of school startup. So August and September and October is negative cash flow. Until December rolls around, we receive the major part of the district's revenues in December and January when property taxes come in. So we need a healthy fund balance, a strong fund balance as of June 30th in order to get us through those cash flow lean months to December. And it's good management for the district to have those balances rather than having to go out and temporarily borrowing those funds. It also, fiscal responsibility means efficient operations. So that's a constant focus and kind of goes along with the old adage that I should do this in PowerPoint so I don't have to fumble around with this, that a dollar saved is a dollar earned. And some examples of that were that we've accomplished over the past years, restructuring of the salary schedule so that we have a competitive salary schedule across all steps, across all channels, but one that is manageable within a cost framework. We've eliminated in next year's budget unneeded and duplicative programs such as SCOPE and the management school. And we also are conscious of the impact of hiring decisions as we have retirements and attrition in our staff of hiring folks and what they're brought in at, the salaries that they're brought in, the impact that that has on the budget and the opportunity that the district has at that point to not just supplement the staff in terms of diversity, but also save money with new hires compared to the retiring teachers going out the top of the salary schedule. So yes, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. Dollar saved is a dollar earned, but so is a dollar earned. In other words, a dollar earned is also a dollar earned. So not only can you come out ahead by saving, you can also come out ahead by earning more. And so a couple of examples of how we've done that. We've expanded the summer school program this year, you probably heard. We've got twice as many elementary students participating in the program, and because the district is no longer hold harmless on the state funding formula and the way that summer school works, and the district can claim the attendance for the summer school versus the cost of providing the summer school, the district actually makes a profit on that. So we earn some money there. Full day kindergarten, the implementation of claiming state funding for full day kindergarten puts the district $600,000 or $700,000 ahead as opposed to charging tuition. And then the district is doing a better job of investing its available funds as well. At the same time, the interest rates are beginning to tick up a little bit, and so our investment earnings are beginning to improve compared to what they've been in the past. And those are just a few examples on both the efficiency side as well as the new dollar side. So that was the new revenues. So we want efficiency, we want new revenues, and then we also need things, we need the whole program to be sustainable. And that brings in kind of a longer term outlook. We're not just looking at next year's budget in isolation. We need to be sure that whatever we're doing next year and implementing next year, that it's sustainable over a longer period of time. So we take a look of further out in terms of sustainability. And that's where we get into, somebody mentioned before, it's not a sprint, it's a longer race. Yes, it's a marathon here. It's not a sprint, and there's going to be peaks and valleys on it as we go along. We need to foresee those, and we need to develop a plan and a budget plan so that we can survive the ups and downs of the economy and of the district's normal fiscal cycle, knowing that the student needs are constant. So as we're out there and implementing programs, we're trying to manage the financial side of it so there can be stability in programs, not just stability in the financial picture, but stability in the tax rate, stability in the classroom, stability in salaries, stability in programs. And that's partially managed by having a strong fund balance too, so that you've got a safety net as things go up and down in cycles. So part of the sustainability is having slow, steady, measured growth, predicting what will happen, kind of a feedback loop. And that's where retaining the budget figures compared to the actual, you can get feedback on here's what we're budgeting, here's what actuals are coming in, here's why they're different, here's how we need to adjust ourselves going forward based on those variances. And then make multiple year projections so that you can ensure that stability. So as a comparison, make this a little bit bigger, it's the same kind of a format that we were looking at when we were doing the budget adjustments. So to give you the same kind of a point of reference as we're looking here, we've got the 16-17 budget and projections available here, as well as what the 2017-18 proposed budget is. This is a summarized, a much more summarized version of the program's line item detail that you had in your board materials. There's an even more detailed version of the budget notebook that Ms. Kite has that breaks things down by fund and other categories that are required by state statute for district budget compliance, but it becomes overwhelmingly detailed to try to take a look at. So the materials that we sent to you and what we're looking at here is something that's more manageable from a management and a review standpoint. Our property taxes, when you look at, and you remember how close we came to budget on the property taxes, we were only 0.3% off. We're budgeting for a 2.1% increase in property tax revenue. The CPI was 2.1%, so we essentially get it from we get the 2.1% from the CPI increase in the reassessment. We do have new construction and personal property. However, that's not increasing what we're budgeting for property taxes because we're backing off the collection rate from 98.1% that we used this year. We're using 97.9%. We're dropping it 0.2% because our actual collection rate this year didn't live up to 98.1%. Now, 98.1% is the 10-year average, so over time, it's probably going to make, 98.1%. But, in terms of being conservative and just fudging a little bit on the conservative side, we dropped that in view of this year's collection rate being about 97.8%. The state foundation formula revenue expected there is dropping simply because the 16-17 budget had about $1 million in it from full-day kindergarten, that one-time full-day kindergarten bump from 15-16. Part of that $1 million loss is being made up because the state's fully funding the foundation formula, as they're saying initially that they are. And so when we look at the increase in the state funding, that offsets a little bit the loss of the $1 million. We pick up about $300,000 of additional funding in the foundation formula because of the increase in state funding. Prop C also expected to go up because of the improving state economy. The state is giving guidance that this year we had budgeted $947 per student essentially. The actual for this past year turned out to be $974. Next year for 17-18 they're giving guidance of around $990. We're being a little conservative and using $979 on that. But that results still in a pretty nice increase in the Prop C. All other category, we're losing money from the cut in public placement funding. We're going to lose about $400,000 from that, and because of the decline in the transfer student enrollment, we have more transfer students graduating each year, and a few that drop out because they move and that kind of thing. And yet we only replace, I think we're limited to 3 or 4 new students. And so that is gradually phasing down and out. So when you take the public placement cut in funding and BST decline in enrollment, that essentially accounts for the drop in overall revenues. So overall, our revenue projection is for a decrease of $300,000, but remember that would have, for all other purposes, would have been $1 million decrease, all things being equal, because of the full-day kindergarten that was doubled up in this year's budget. So when you adjust for that full-day kindergarten factor, our actual revenue projection is up about $700,000 for this year. Looking at debt service, that's increasing significantly, about 9%, and that essentially reflects the reassessment increase that we had. The reassessment increase was 10 or 11%, and so that just flows through with the district projected to maintain its debt service tax levy at its current level. There's not the CPI rollback required on that, as we talked about at the last meeting. So the debt service fund, in conjunction with the $1.2 million transfer that you just approved earlier, and the increase in assessed valuation and the revenue that comes along with that, positions the district very well in terms of servicing the outstanding bonds of the district, as well as creating some potential no tax increase bonding capacity in the near future if the district needs it. On the expenditure side, when we look at the salaries up about 1%. That looks low initially until you reference that there were some transfers that had previously been included in the salary bucket that were decreased or transferred to another area. Public placement funding, that's tuition paid to other districts that had traditionally been included in salaries, in the salary line, but that's dropping by $400,000 as we just saw in the revenue. That's a pass-through to Great Circle and Epworth for those public placement funds. So that pass-through will decline, so that reduces the projected salaries by $400,000. We also had the school resource officers, even though they're contracted, those had previously been included in the salary line item. We're transferring them down. You might have noticed if you went through the line-by-line comparison in the detailed budget, where the safety and security went up substantially. That's because we transferred SRO, the amount of SRO contract with the city of Webster Groves, from the salary line down to safety and security program line. So if you add that 500 and some thousand, or adjust for that 500 and some thousand back into the salaries, you find an average, the salaries are increasing by about 2.5%. The teachers, which is the biggest single group in the salary category, received about a 2.3% raise. Other employees around a 3% raise. When you average them all together, about 2.5, 2.6%. Benefits increasing by 6.8%. That's essentially the salary increase plus 9% increase in health insurance costs. Capital projects, those will be down about 3%. The reason we have had about $400,000 or $500,000 in this year's budget of bond projects that earlier this year had been transferred over to the operating funds in order for the district to be able to transfer unspent bond monies over to the debt service fund. That was kind of the first step, if you go back several months, of shoring up the debt service fund balance. And so that $400,000 or $500,000 of bond issue capital projects was in this year's, the 16-17 budget. And of course, with them being pulled out, the capital projects budget would drop. But we did try to maintain still a commitment of the operating funds to addressing capital projects and the aging infrastructure of the district. So we didn't see the capital projects dropping by $500,000, $400,000 or $500,000. We tried to backfill that with some operating funds so that we could still keep up with that aging infrastructure. And quite honestly, that gives us the ability to do that, but it also gives us a safety valve that's built into the budget that if we have an unforeseen kind of an emergency, these are one-time projects that don't get done until the end of the year, as we saw in looking at this year's budget. And so if we have an unforeseen emergency in the year that's coming up, we can always fall back on the capital projects before we have to start disrupting other district programs and services. So that kind of acts as a safety valve. And then underneath that, of course, conservative assumptions that we're making for revenues and expenditures is also somewhat of a budgetary safety mechanism. And then we've got the strong fund balances that underlie kind of the whole budget that is kind of the third line of defense from a budget standpoint. So the observation that was made that the district is in very strong financial situation is demonstrated by the numbers for next year. So we're projecting about $1 million surplus, $65 million worth of revenues, $63 million in expenditures. If you just take the operating piece of that, we have operating revenues $59.7 million, $58.7 million for the operating expenditures. So the operating surplus is projected at about $1 million for next year. When you project that out, and the materials that I had sent to you goes beyond just a single year that we're looking at in the summary here, you had a couple of more years tapped onto that, and then kind of some assumptions, some trends, and some inflation factors built into those. What we would expect through those projections is that as the revenues grow a little bit slower than the expenditures, that this $1 million surplus would become a break-even budget essentially for the following year, and then about $1 million deficit the year after that. So looking at a 3-year planning horizon, using conservative budget adjustments, knowing that we have a safety mechanism in a healthy budget for the capital projects, and knowing we have even a very healthy and solid fund balance below that, underlying that, we have a 3-year horizon. If you look at the 3-year budget horizon, a balanced budget over a 3-year period with $1 million surplus, a break-even, and $1 million deficit, combine those. In addition to that, we also have, looking forward, take a look at some of the future positives and negatives that will affect the outlook. And we talked about just stuff that is built into the budget itself, but to even expand that a little bit further as we go forward. Some other things that could positively, and we're going to talk about kind of positives, just briefly go over some positive factors and then some negative factors, things that could impact the district favorably or unfavorably in the future. We have some tax increment financing development in the districts up at Rock Hill and Manchester for the most part, and we have about $3.9 million that will be coming back on the tax rolls as it currently stands in 2021. So not that far away, and you may think, okay, $3.9 million in assessed valuation, you know, that's a decent number. What does that mean? Each $1 million at our current tax rate, at the district's current tax rate, equates to about $45,000. So when you get $4 million, $45,000, $180,000 from that coming back on the tax rolls in 2021. Further down the road, the $9.2 million in 2028, that's more substantial. I mean, there we're getting up closer to $400,000 coming in, and that's before considering other new construction, increases in personal property, and reassessment increases as well. So that bodes well going forward. The district's currently implemented a 1 cent voluntary rollback in its tax rate, and that 1 cent rollback was retained, was maintained in next year's budget for the full-day kindergarten scholarships that once the district converted to claiming attendance and no longer charging tuition, scholarships were no longer needed, but 1 cent of a tax levy had been approved by the community many years ago, dedicated toward full-day kindergarten scholarships. That 1 cent is out there. It's not legally, technically restricted to full-day kindergarten scholarships. So in the event of an emergency or a hardship for the district could consider foregoing that rollback, and that 1 cent would generate around $70,000 to $75,000. We have potential no increased bonding capacity from the structuring, the proactive structuring that we're doing with the balance transfers over to the debt service fund, and to the extent that some of the capital projects that are in the district's operating budget now could be handled through a no tax increase bond issue if approved, if the board approved going for one and then took it to the community and the community approved whatever those projects would be. That bonding capacity could cover some of the operating capital improvement commitment that the district has made. And another kind of a collateral impact of that would be to the extent that those capital projects impact efficiency, maybe replacing some lighting with more efficient lighting, maybe replacing old equipment that's requiring a higher level of repairs and maintenance, or is less energy efficient, an HVAC unit or something like that, that would be more efficient and require less repairs and maintenance. That would also provide relief to the operating fund. So these are things we talked about where bonding capacity and operating funds can work together to improve and provide stability for the district in the long run.
Essentially spending to save.
Yes, spending to save. Yeah. We actually have another example of that that is on the agenda in the consent items. We've got a technology item that we're asking to approve a lease for the rolling replacement cycle of some computer equipment. By doing a lease, that actually is going to, the district has a dedicated levy that goes toward rolling replacement, generates about $400,000 of money to go toward technology in the district. We are planning to take a piece of that in order to upgrade phone equipment in the district that hasn't been upgraded yet. That would position the district to be able to take advantage of, I have to defer to Bill Kay exactly how this works, but it positions the district to take advantage of a different line configuration for all of the communications that would save the district about $3,000 a month in line charges, and the new phone equipment would cost us about $90,000. So in less than 3 years, we would totally recover the cost of the phone system, and the savings would just accrue to the district. So we've got things like that. That's the efficiency side that we were talking about before, an example of one that I didn't even have on the list there, but that's the direction we're moving there. So yes, spend some money to save some money, and to save even more money. I have to go through. each one of these, but just kind of hit the high points of the new salary models that I referenced before. Helps the district manage the largest single expense that it has in salaries. The rollback in our tax levy from the reassessment it creates more space between the $6 levy threshold compared to where the district's actual tax levy is. When you get to a $6 operating levy, anything above that requires a 2/3 majority for a levy increase. Anything below that is a simple majority. The district had been bumping up against that $6 levy in several years past, but through the last couple of reassessments and rollbacks, the operating levy for residential property will be about $4.65. For commercial property, for about 10 cents more than that. So it creates a substantial amount of simple majority, no tax increase on the operating side, if that's needed in the future. As I said, we've got a 3-year balanced budget without that, and conservative adjustments and good balances and working on these other things, so that's way out in the future, but it's nice to have that as a potential contingency down the road if and when needed. Of course, we always have the rising real estate values for reassessment in odd-numbered years. We have slowly growing enrollment in our schools that generates state funding and a strong fund balance position. You know, so it's all good news. Is it all rosy? Not all of it. I mean, there's some future negatives out there. The state, as we mentioned before, reduced public placement funding. We don't know what the service implications are going to be and what the funding obligations of that exactly are going to be. We're currently scheduling to talk with Special School District and Great Circle about how all of that is going to translate into services and expenses for the various organizations and students involved. So that's a little bit of an unknown. Rising interest rates may increase the cost of future debt. Yeah, gives us the opportunity to invest idle district fund balances temporarily at a higher rate, but it could also impact the cost of future borrowing. There's nothing currently under consideration, but there's always the potential for the state's retirement contribution to increase. The stock market's been doing well, investments in the financial markets have been doing well, so the state retirement system hasn't needed to ask for an increase in the contribution rate. But that's always out there in a faltering economy at some point that rate could increase. Also, we hear all the time in recent years about Social Security or Medicare tax rates increasing. We're not aware of any current proposal that has any legs of doing that, but there's always that future potential. Our large increases in health insurance costs are likely to continue because we've got an aging workforce and medical inflation continues to work away. But depending on what healthcare reforms are implemented and what the demographics turns out to be for our employees, those large increases could continue for at least the next few years. As our enrollment grows and as we do a comprehensive facility study, we may identify that new facility spaces needed, particularly with the enrollment projections, things getting tight at Edward Road and Clark. That may mean new facility space. That may mean looking at district attendance boundaries. Yeah, I said it. That wouldn't be fun, but we have other options there. That's just trying to present a comprehensive picture of the positives and the negatives going forward. Obviously, the stability of future state funding. Right now, the state's committed to fully funding the foundation formula. The state economy is doing pretty good. When and if that turns around, that can have funding implications for school districts. We've experienced in the past, there are good times, there are lean times. It's a cycle. So I think we're prepared for that with our balances and our planning the way that it is. But we need to be aware that it's always out there. So, overall, with next year's budget and with the overwhelming factors, the overwhelming majority of factors going forward are favorable. Kind of reminds me of an old maritime saying that you may be familiar with. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. I would submit that the budget that's in front of you this evening is more of a red sky at night kind of a budget and an outlook for the district.
Yeah, I see some pink up there in the sky.
So, that
Questions
concludes my
for Bruce?
remarks.
Jean?
Well, I noticed you're saying $80 million in higher assessed valuation, which I know some of our homeowners are concerned that their rates, their value is going up a lot. How many challenges do you think there are going to be on the current assessments, and when will we get actual figures to set the tax rate in September? Do you have a date?
Yeah, we always set the tax rate in September. The county assessor's office will provide us with updated figures. We fully anticipate that there will probably be a substantial number of assessment appeals because of the increase due to reassessment. That averaged 10 to 11%. Some were higher, some were lower, so that was just the average. We also understand from talking to the assessor's office that the kind of class action firms are still out there that try to organize on a contingency fee basis large groups of residential property owners or individual businesses that in exchange for a portion of any tax savings they might get, that they would try to appeal their values for them. The assessor's office says that activity seems to be increasing, which in a year with this level of reassessment increase, not a surprise. We, however, are limited, the district is limited to just getting 2.1% of that reassessment increase. So I think that the probability that those appeals would successfully get the reassessed values down less than 2.1% average is remote. So I think from the standpoint of the district's budget being conservative and safe, I think that's true. In terms of individual taxpayers, some individual taxpayers may get substantial relief through the appeals process, but I don't anticipate it would be enough to affect our budget projections.
Do you think we'll have a new number from the county by August 28th in
Yes.
the meeting?
August
Or will it be
28th
in
meeting,
September?
we usually get, what's that?
Okay, what part of heaven to us for the 15th?
15th?
15th of August?
Should have.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
David?
Yeah. So you highlighted, I've got a few questions, I'm sorry. You highlighted in some of the sub-documents the preschool and revenues for the preschool. I just wondered, does that tuition number, so I know that we give some scholarships to Ambrose, does that tuition sort of reflect the value we would have collected on those scholarships?
No. It just reflects the cash that we expect to actually collect.
Do you have and I apologize, I haven't asked you in advance, do you have a guess as to how much the value of those scholarships is?
We have Marty
We
here
don't
tonight.
currently, we don't, as a district, we don't give any scholarships.
We're not giving any scholarships there?
No, that was on the 2000.
So here's my question, okay? Preschool's supposed to be self-supporting, and you're showing a roughly a 4% 4% deficit.
Yes.
It's sort of $42,000. I just wanted to make sure we had sort of the right numbers there to begin with. What are the plans to actually get that back into balance?
So let's address the scholarships. While there are no formal complete scholarships, there are students that are attending the preschool program and paying a very nominal amount of tuition.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at.
Those are the kids who attend the preschool program under the Head Start program, and Marty, correct me if I'm wrong. The district receives around $5,000 per student through the Head Start program.
Okay.
And the parents pay, I think, $100 or $200 of tuition contribution toward that. The full cost preschool tuition, however, is around $9,000. And so if you think of that difference as being they're scholarshiped as to almost half of what the normal tuition is, and we have about 13, I think it is, 15 Head Start students, that $4,000 difference times the 15 students represents that $41,000
Okay.
actually. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that those students are largely free and reduced meal eligible. And so if the full funding of the foundation formula stays in place for this year, we would be able to begin claiming those students for ADA for state funding purposes, and state funding is more than that $5,000. And so it would be more like $7,800 for those students, and that $2,800 times the 15 students would essentially take care of that. So this may be a one-year difference.
Okay, that's good.
But in the meantime, it does represent kind of the amount of that
Sure.
subsidy, as well as we can cover it with the carryover fund balances from those programs of the surpluses they've generated in the past.
Okay, so if we got that extra money, though, that wouldn't actually be strictly figured in. That would come in elsewhere in the budget as an income item. Although realistically, you could say it ought to be apportioned to this in order to make this.
And we would apportion it to it for
Okay.
purposes of giving a complete, accurate picture.
Okay.
Yes. at
That's
that
great.
time.
Thank you very much on that. Separately, if I look at, I guess if we go to your page where you were showing the debt service and whatever, I mean, we keep referring to a no tax increase, tax increase bond issue. I've said this before, I'll make the point again, just sort of once more. At the point in time that the property taxes are going up by 2% and the debt service is going up by 9%, the reason why it's a no tax increase bond issue when you do it in 2, 3, 5 years' time is because you've already increased the taxes now. So whenever I hear this, I have a slightly hard time with that. Now, I know last time you pointed out that when we don't change that, so that when we could potentially collect more, we keep it level, and when we could collect less, we keep it level as well. So we've got some sort of level of that. I guess I would point out, however, that if we're running an operating surplus of almost $1 million, and I understand you're basically saying you need that for year 3 in order to break even.
Right.
Although if this year we were running about $1.2 million ahead of even where we thought we were going to be, and that's the money you're going and transferring back, you actually probably could, in fact, afford to go and reduce the bond. You'd still have a surplus. It probably, with the conservatism you've got in, it would be a little bit tighter, but you could actually reduce the bond. You could reduce what you're collecting on the bonds back to be in line with everything else, and you'd probably still be good for 3 years. It's more just an observation. I will support this, but I want there to be some recognition that it may say, as I keep hearing this talk about a no tax increase bond issue, and it bites the wrong way, because every time we've chosen not to decrease the taxes here. The one other thing I would like to say, however, and it's more just a caution to my colleagues on the board, which is that you're showing $1 million surplus now, and we need that for 3 years, for 2 years' time. We have in the past, I've been part of these conversations where we say, we're running a surplus so we can afford to go and do some or other thing that wasn't on the budget. We say, well, look, we've got this money in a surplus. No, we don't. This money is basically spoken for later. So that if I hear any, and if we hear anything which comes back and says, well, we're running this surplus so we can afford to do this, when I stand up and say, no, we don't, I just want everybody to understand that, that's all.
Yeah, so certainly any request needs to be needs-based and not just because funds are available based.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, if we've needs, they should be irrespective of the budget, and we should say this is something on a needs basis we support because it is right, not because we should never be doing it because we have a theoretical surplus.
Right. Yes, and that's where the sustainability comes around, and taking the look at the longer term, and so that we're not just looking at this year in isolation from what's next year and the year after expected to look like. Yeah.
Dave, do you have any more questions on your
No,
list?
no, I think you've had enough.
Joe?
No, I'm good.
Arnold? I don't have any
I
additional
have
comments.
another silly little one. You mentioned eliminating scope and the management school. Can you explain what was duplicative there?
Yeah, those were alternative placements that for our students that were not being successful in their current placement. We have an alternative with the Vista partnership with Kirkwood
So it's
that
Vista.
accomplishes the same purpose and had available seats there. So the kids that would otherwise have gone to Scope or the management school would be directed to the Vista program at Kirkwood instead.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Went around the room, asked for questions and comments. At this point, because this is not on the consent agenda, we do need a board action item. So would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that the Webster Grove School District Board of Education approves the proposed 2017-18 district budget, which projects operating revenues of $59,668,411, operating expenditures of $58,674,900, total revenues of $65,030,869, and total expenditures of $63,311,568.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Arnold. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None. Bruce, thank you very much. You can take a breather and sit down, and we'll welcome our folks from Walter Ambrose Family Center. They've been very patient. We appreciate that. And we're excited because you're here tonight to give us an update. Marty, welcome. You ladies, hello. Good to see you.
I'm setting a timer. I'm going to attempt to honor everyone's time. I am very grateful to be here to share about the Ambrose Family Center that does some pretty remarkable work, I think. And I'm especially honored to be here with my colleagues who are a huge part in the success of the work that we do. So I have Laura Ionaza, who is the coordinator for the FACE program, also known as Parenting Education and Support. Lauren Forsythe, who is our early childhood curriculum coordinator, and Brittany Koch, who is the new director or coordinator, beg your pardon, for the Adventure Club program. Still looking for my clock. Sure. Well, total 30. Not all for me, so keep me, hold me off. Okay. I'm gonna share just a little bit but while I'm talking, I thought it might be interesting to bring the work that we do to life just a little bit. Unfortunately, these are only slides of the kids at the preschool, and we don't have slides that represent Adventure Club or FACE, but next time we will do that. So just wanted to share about our vision, mission, and beliefs. We have cards here and a slide that you may have seen in the presentation that's already gone forward. We spent 2 years developing our vision, mission, and beliefs. The importance of sharing that today is that it drives every decision that we make. And when you look at your little card, the children's writing that says children transforming their world is our vision. It's not our world, it's their world. And we believe this from the children from the minute they're born until forever, but in our case, until we pass them on to kindergarten. On the opposite side of the card, you have a wordle, and this is our mission statement. We actually tried for a very long time to come up with one mission statement. We could not do it because we had 10 that were equally beautiful and no one would kind of give it up. So we threw it all into this, and what that represents is the larger the word, the more often it came out. It was used in all of these 10 different mission statements. And so when people come to our center for any purposes, the I that we are represents the minute you walk in our door, you are part of our vision and our mission. So you can look at these words and you determine for yourself, what is your mission? Why are you there that day? And as a staff, we do this as well. We look at these words and decide individually what is our mission. So some really beautiful words: children, community, support, relationships, nurture. And I think one of our most favorite is soar. It's just one of our most favorite words. And then in terms of the beliefs that we have, commitments and beliefs, we have children are first, children guide our learning, children need deep human connections, children are curious and playful by nature, children's understandings cannot be hurried, and children show and share their understandings in many ways. I cannot stress how frequently we pull these out when we're having a disagreement among ourselves as teachers, what we're doing with special school district, with Head Start, and we go back to these basic beliefs, and that's what guides us. It's so important to keep this in front of us as we're making decisions. So this is essentially that. The other things that I wanted to share is that the FACE, you'll hear in a minute about the FACE program, that has really redefined its mission and its purpose in our district, formerly known as Parents as Teachers. You will learn about that. The Adventure Club program that's in the process of letting go of 35 years of amazing programming to redefine itself, to consider what are we when we're talking about democratic learning and opportunities for children before and after school. And also the preschool. It's state licensed, it's nationally accredited. We partner with Head Start, with Special School District. We work with the Department of Health and Senior Services. Have oversight by DESE. So we have so many people who are watching what we do and making sure that we stay true to our mission. I do think it's important to know that we serve over 1,000 children. I mean, that's, when you think about Ambrose Center, you might think it's a small little building, but collectively under the umbrella, it's 1,000 children. And I also wanted to point out, and Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you go to the Early Childhood Center? As did Kelly, Miss Kelly, I can't remember what's her first name, but it was on the track team. Emma, I think. Emma, Kelly, so I can guarantee you, every time you have high school kids come in here, there is somebody in the room who started with us. And that, to me, speaks volumes about the importance of the work that we do. Oh, thank you.
I'm Laura Ianazzo. I'm the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator here at Webster Grove School District. And excited to share some numbers with you, but most importantly, I'm excited to share one story with you of a family impacted by our program. As many of you know, we did a DESE waiver to revision the program to hopefully get a pass on the unit-based funding that handcuffed our work. DESE did not honor that waiver. However, we have continued to push through that and looked for authentic ways and still get reimbursed to service our families. So you can see that last year we served 314 families, 425 children served, but more importantly, we went on 776 visits, and that is between myself and Chris Steger. 527 were prenatal to 3 years old, and 249 were 3 to 5 year olds. 300 children were also screened on top of that using the ASQ. We used health, hearing, and vision. 85 of the children were indicated a delay in one or more area. 51 of them were referred to special school district, and 45 qualified in one or more areas based on our screening. You'll see we're really excited about this because we're finally reflecting more of what the school district's about. We have 43 minority families, we have 32 low-income families. We are serving 128 families that at least meet one of the DESE high needs characteristics, and in your notes you got a list of those. We have 29 families that meet 2 of the DESE high needs characteristics, and we have 16 families with 3 or more of those characteristics. So they might be multi-generational living, homeless, low income, and low education. So we're working with those families to make a difference and look around their family well-being. You can see our current service model is different than any other district. We go in and we welcome every family to a welcome appointment to get to know what they need.
So instead of prescribed, you get 4 visits, you get 4 visits, you get 4 visits, we are reflective of what they need. And all of those visits are around a common goal that is determined in partnership with the family. So there are some families that I see, I get texts and hey, this is happening, can I see you next week? Sure. There are some families that I see weekly because we're working towards something that is bigger. So it looks different for all families. But we're also we're trying to get more and more connected with the community. You'll see both Chris and I serve on the Equity in Education. We talk with Rock Hill Ministries on a regular basis and other nonprofits like Helping Hand-Me-Downs we didn't even know about, but they'll give an entire layette of clothes at any time to a family. So if they need summer 6 to 9 month clothes, we can go pick it up and they have all 6 to 9 month clothes. They also do free diapers and things like that. So we're constantly looking for that. And we support families through the special school district process. So we're not just, doing a referral and then sending them on the way, but that we're there throughout the entire process. All right, so currently we're servicing at a capacity. We would love to hire one more parent educator at about 30 hours a week for a 9-month period of time. The cost of the training is $1,500, and the downfall of this is the additional salary will partially be covered by an increase in state building, that unit-based funding that handcuffs us, but it wouldn't be fully covered. So this is the most important thing. This is Erica and Jaden. I met them last May. I got a call because a neighbor had told them that I could help them out. So who knows whatever that means. So I walked in the house ready to do my welcome appointment and sit down and just chat and get to know this family. I walked in, sat on the floor to play with Jaden, and he threw a block at my head. And we had it, and Mom was mortified. Grandma was mortified. I was like, this happens all the time. So we built a relationship. It's fine. It was fine.
Let me show you the last scar.
Yes, it's fine. Mom of 3 boys too, so I have quick reflexes. But the key to this family is we sat down and just talked through their stress, through what was going on. They were, Erica was, and no longer, living multi-generational. So her and Jaden were sharing a room. So there were sleep issues. There were, and major developmental issues. As of last May, he was attending a place that would not move him out of the toddler room, even though he was 3 years old. Because developmentally, he was a toddler, and they couldn't handle his behaviors and his lack of language in any other room. So, fast forward, we really came up with a plan. We did a referral to SSD, hustled a Head Start spot at Ambrose Family Center for him to attend. And a year later, what it looks like is Jaden currently attends our building. He is with typical peers all day long. He receives all his services pushed in. He went from 3 to 5 words that he uses to over 100, and getting his needs met through words instead of hitting, biting, and all that. But more importantly, he laughs and smiles all the time with his friends. Mom has moved out of Grandma's house, even though she's pretty stressed about it because she's used to that support. We love Grandma. She comes and picks up often. And she's actually been promoted in her job, too, because the family's trust of Jaden. So we're really excited, but this was one example of a family that we serviced. However, I want to say we only reimbursed for probably 15 visits, but there were hundreds of texts and phone calls and supportive calls and trying to figure out who needs to go where logistic-wise. That is not reimbursable by the parents as teachers model.
Laura, I don't know what they
Okay.
told them that you could do for them, but it sounds like you did all of that and more with that family, so thank you.
Steve, that's a really nice acknowledgement, and it's true. What they have pushed into and addressed has been amazing. Our families are really benefiting in the community. Definitely. Okay, so on to the preschool. We're just kind of going in chronological age order. No rhyme or reason to anything. So first I wanted to share our innovations. I mean, we do obviously great work. Laura gave an example of the work that she and the preschool teachers have done with Jaden and his family. But I also want to point out that we really are leaders. We have been accepted to present at 4 national conferences in 2 years. That's pretty phenomenal. Regional conferences, state conferences, we've presented at SLU, and we've presented at Webster University. We've hosted educational delegations from China and from Thailand, from over 20 different school districts, from local child care programs who want to come to our center and learn what are we doing, why are we doing it. And also teachers from the Webster Groves School District have also come to learn along with us and have taken some of the innovations and some of the work in our approach to education and pushed it up into their grade levels. In addition, we host parent learning evenings for the parents. So they are coming in, they're learning with us, they're figuring out what do we do, why do we do it, how do we interact with their children. Instead of just telling them about curriculum, they're actually experiencing that. So they learn with us. We also do school tours for prospective parents. When we do these presentations, this is not just certified teachers. Certified and non-certified teachers do this together because they work together side by side every day, and that knowledge base is there for all of them. One member of our team has one publication in a national peer-reviewed journal, and another one is in progress. So Steve looked over, he knows it's Miss Forth's site here. So, and that's the second one is actually being done with the university, with SLU, some faculty members at SLU. So we do make a difference. We make a difference to the field, but do kids make progress? That's the real question. And the answer is yes, we do. I'm not going to go through all of these slides, but what we use, you want me to say it? She could say it way faster.
Okay, so we use Teaching Strategies Gold, which is a research-based assessment tool that uses per age lines, research-based age lines on progressions. So in each area, social, emotional, gross motor, fine motor, etc., on this chart in particular, you're looking at the amount of children that came into us at the beginning of the year, and it's not quite at the beginning of the year because it's our first checkpoint is October. And then at the end of the year, which is around end of April, you can see the amount of children that were below their research-based age line in the area of socio-emotional. So we had 51 below, and we got that down to 19. That includes all of our super subgroups of Head Start, free and reduced lunch, SSD, IEP children, that includes everyone. So you can see. Then you can see, this is one of the area, you'll see we not only reduce the number below their age line, but we're able to get those children, some children to move from meeting their age line to actually exceeding their age line. So we keep kids moving, and this tool helps us reflect daily on where kids are, what they need in support, and it informs our planning for that. So you can see that with every one of them, gross motor, fine motor, all the different areas.
Yeah, so she was way faster than me. That's good. That's good for all of us. Okay, so demographics. I really don't want to go through all of these. You've had them ahead of time. It kind of points out who we're serving, how we're serving, what the cost is. We do have 4 blended age classrooms, 20 children per room, and we believe in, instead of a 3-year-old room, a 4-year-old room, and a 5-year-old room, we believe in bringing them together. We firmly believe that that's part of the reason children are learning from each other, and that's part of the reason we have the gold results that we have. Full day 2-year-olds. This year we had 1 classroom. Next year, to meet demands, we are moving that to 2 classrooms. And actually, this year we had 5 3 to 5-year-old classrooms. Next year we'll have 4. So we have 2 classrooms of full day 2-year-olds. We also have half-day classrooms, morning and afternoon. What's interesting about this is these are designed in part to support special school district and the children that are Webster Groves School District children who have special education rights. So 5 of the sections, 3 morning, 2 afternoon, they're team taught. So we have a gen ed teacher and a special ed teacher. We have we are supposed to have 12 gen ed students and in 6 special education students. So again, we believe in peers learning from one another. We also, this coming year, will have one afternoon section that is just going to be special ed, only taught by a special ed classroom. It's much smaller. It's 12 children per room, 6 children with IEP, 6 children without. One of the things that happens with this, with partnering with special school district, quite frankly, is that we go in an ebb and a flow. And so we have to open up classrooms, and we open them up because of the number of children with IEPs that are coming to us. But we don't have that same need for gen ed kids. So we are constantly looking for kids when we get to that 3-room half-day model, as opposed to just 2 classrooms, then we're fine. So we're in this year again where we have more children with IEPs and have needs than we have gen ed kids. So we have been working, one of our parents is a marketing specialist, and so we're trying to put a push out there for the additional children that we need to fill those slots. Current funding sources, family-based tuition. Basically, our families pay a lot of money to come to the preschool, although it is within market rates. We get subsidies from social service child care subsidies for families that qualify, Head Start reimbursements, which, as Bruce pointed out, do not begin to cover the cost of a family who's paying the full amount. We have state child care block grants that we write every year, and fortunately we've been able to get those at they're limited to $20,000 a year, but we write them and we are very fortunate to get them. The foundation has been very good to us. We do get some reimbursement from special school district, but again, when you look at the spots, it doesn't mesh out. And then in-kind support from Webster Grove School District. That includes a nurse, custodians, the facilities. They write our paychecks. Bruce and Joanne work closely with Chris, our bookkeeper, in budgeting. So all kinds of areas we do have support. So it's, to say that we're self-supporting is not actually accurate. Changes in some funding across the time. It's off. Before, I'm just saying before because it goes back all the way to 2000, and then current situations. One example is the MPP grants. We used to get $110,000 a year. Start in 2015 is when they finally ended it. So for the 5 years before that, they kept decreasing that amount. So $110,000 really helped out our budget. The administrator's salary was paid through the Webster Grove School District for several years. In 2015 to 2018, this coming year, the administrator's salary will be paid through the preschool. There were biannual tuition increases. That was just the way that we did it every other year. We did a small increase, and it was something parents could predict. We had a period of time where those, where it was not, we didn't make those tuition increases based on recommendations. Excuse me. We also, this is really important, there was blended funding allowed. Back in the day when we took Head Start kids, we were able to collect from parent co-pays, so parents paid some. We also got money from child care subsidies, and Head Start paid us. And then the parents may pay a little bit above their copay that's determined by the social services. And you could blend all those together. So it actually covered, and sometimes more than covered, the cost of tuition. They stopped doing that. So now there's core hours, and you're not allowed to fund during those hours. So if we get Head Start from 8:30 to 3:30, we can't get any funding in any other way for that. We can't get the additional funding from child care subsidies. That is a huge hit, and that's really when I think our income started declining in order to serve children, our most vulnerable children and families, quite frankly. Another change that is exciting, actually, is that in the past, until this current year, parents had to work full-time or go to school full-time or a combination to qualify for assistance, and Head Start is now no longer requiring that. We have a lot of parents who Laura serves them. They're not going to get full-time jobs. They're not going to be in school full-time. They might do part-time, something like that. So they were never eligible. So what that opens up is the opportunity to perhaps reach some additional families. Whoops. This just is a slide that really does point out what Bruce shared as well. Full pay tuition is $9,130. That's for 10 months. That's for the school year. That doesn't include summer. Head Start pays approximately $5,000. The parent copay is $500 per year. So you can see the loss, the annual loss, $54,450 times 15 children. And we do have sliding fee scale for families in Head Start. So if the family chooses to come 8:30 to 3:30, they have a $50 copay. If they come from 7 until 6 o'clock and they get the Division of Social Services Child Care Subsidies copay, then it's $150. If they don't want to go and try to get Division of Social Services funding, then it's $300 a month as their copay. So, that's really great, $50 a month. Yeah, if your job is from 8:30 to 3:30. But quite frankly, very few people have that, so then they rely on familial care to come get the children, and then they don't always come on time. As a matter of fact, they frequently don't. That incurs a late fee, and then that incurs this cycle of being behind in their payments. And every one of these parents works so hard, wants so badly to have their children in the center. They are figuring out how to rob Peter to pay Paul to make ends meet, and even $50 a month is an incredible hardship for the families. We are committed to serving them, but it absolutely is a financial impact.
I'll just stop you for a second. So to what Bruce said before, if we can actually collect more money from the state for these families, and we're eligible to do that, and so would we then revisit those copays, or are they sort of set? Are they sort of a statutory thing?
I don't think are they required by Head Start?
No, but
They're not, but what I would say is that there's a good possibility, and it has happened systematically, as money goes into another pot that's available, then they say now you can't collect money from Head Start, for example. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. What it might do is provide more slots for more children in need than the 15 that we have, but yeah.
We'll have to look into what that means. It won't go into effect until the year after next anyway, so we have time to look at it. But if it works the same way as K-12, claiming attendance for K-12,
sure,
we actually would be prohibited from charging a fee for participating in the program. It's like we can't charge tuition for full day kindergarten and claim attendance at the same time. I suspect it's the same rules.
Okay, thank you.
Was that blended funding a legislative or a DESI ruling?
DESI.
It was DESI.
it was the Department of Health and Senior Services.
Really?
It was Department of Health and Senior
Okay.
Services. They did not allow for double billing. So if you're collecting from Head Start, you can no longer collect for those hours. So that's where it came from. Child care subsidies.
They tried to hit us up as well. If any child had an IEP, they weren't going to pay any money for a child with an IEP. And that's when I was like, whoa, we don't get it. Special school district in St. Louis gets that money, not our district. So, and we're not getting that payment from special school districts. So then they listened to me. I argued long enough. Advocated, that's the word, I advocated. Okay, so the financial impact for special school districts, and this is really tricky because these are our children, and by state and federal law, they are eligible for a free and appropriate education. So if the children are coming half day, we cannot charge them anything for the slots that they come, the slots that they are in our center. So between 36 and 44 children, if we always have a 2-child cushion, because kids can be identified in April or May, and by law you have to let them into the program to receive their services. So we could go up to 8 children, although we try to keep it to 6 children per classroom with IEP needs. And these are significant needs. This isn't speech therapy. It's more complex than that. So we charge $300 a month for those half-day slots. And if you multiply that out, this is what it looks like. We do have a responsibility to serve them, but there's costs associated with serving the children. And our reimbursement from SSD, I think this year it was $23,000, if I'm correct. I think we got as high one time as $25,000. And what I've met recently with the early childhood director for special school district, and she's anticipating huge cuts. So we don't expect that to go up. We actually expect it to go down.
Who determines that amount, special?
Yes.
And do you know what factors they use to determine that amount of money?
They look, it's pretty complex. What they're doing is they're taking the number of children, and then they look at things like square footage of our building. And so out of the number of children, if, 15% are children with IEPs, then they pay 15% of our utilities, or 15% of custodial salaries. So it's pretty peculiar. I could get you all of that information, but it's SSD's interpretation. I don't think anybody outside of special school district looks at it in that way, and nor would they have to, because they're dealing with all of the different school districts. The other thing about early childhood special education funding is that it's grant-based. So they're getting money in based on a grant, and they're figuring out how to distribute it. And actually, it's only been in the last few years that we've even gotten any reimbursement. It's when school districts started getting buildings built with early childhood buildings with collaboration with special school district that I was kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, because we have a building, we get nothing. What? I don't understand this. And so then they started looking at reimbursement for all of the school district partnerships. Okay. So future challenges, it's up there. How might we serve children who have the fewest resources and the least exposure to preschool learning opportunities and still stay financially viable? It's hard to look at the population at our preschool and feel like we actually adequately serve our entire community. We are grateful for all of our families. We love what we do. But it's definitely not equity in opportunity for education that's happening there. The Team Talk classrooms, those issues with children with special rights. It's hard because we can't keep the gen ed kids in. The families don't want afternoon slots, but in order to have enough slots for all the kids with IEPs, we have to offer afternoon classes. So our tuition, our income from that tuition is impacted. Kids who need full-time care and their child needs special education. Right now, we have the kids, actually 8 of our 15 Head Start children had significant special education needs. So they were in our full-day classrooms. The thing that, the challenge with that was that the children, had they gone to a half-day classroom, would have actually received more services than how SSD interprets the law and how many minutes of service they're allowed to have because they're in a full-day classroom. It's pretty interesting. And another challenge is just equitably compensate staff. I spoke highly of our staff and the things that we do, and because we are supposed to come as close to being self-supporting as possible, that's a difficulty in terms of really compensating them as other district staff are compensated. So, gosh, we love what we do. I don't mean to end on a downer, but those are some of the challenges that we have. And Brittany is going to talk just for a couple minutes. I'm sorry we're over our time. There's a lot to share. So,
Free programs. Okay, I'll go quickly. I'm Brittany with the Venture Club. Currently, we have almost 600 kids enrolled in our Venture Club for the 2017-2018 school year. We used to have a manager at each school. After looking at our numbers, we really felt that Hudson and Steger weren't one full-time manager to oversee both schools. And our Edgar school used to be in the 60s to 70s typically, and we saw a huge enrollment jump.
So looking at that, we have decided that we are going to hire an assistant manager at that school as well. With our work with our human resource department, we've been able to restructure our salaries, which has made us very competitive with our part-time staff. But we still have the issues of retaining staff, keeping staff, recruiting, things of that sort. It's really that there's a number of different reasons why, but we're still working on that day to day. Space allocation, you kind of know that story with before and after care. We're always saying we need more space. We do. With Bristol having 137 kids, you can see how running an after-school program with just a couple of spaces is tough. But instead of talking about that, I really do want to talk about my team and how great they are. This is actually the gym lobby in this picture. Bristol having so many kids and the spaces that they're given, they have been fantastic with using every inch of space that they're given. They'll play foursquare out there, bean bags. They really get creative with their spaces. A goal for Adventure Club is the democratic learning. We're currently working on that, really seeing what that looks like for before and after care, and we are continuously learning. Lucky for us, we are based out of the preschool, so we have some great mentors and mentees on that. Adventure Club Summer Program, we are currently at Edgar Road Elementary with the Summer Exploration Experience. We have our students, we are still running a full day program along with our before and after care program. After the summer is over, we're really going to look and see what the benefits were of being in the same school together throughout the summer. I do want to share one of the fun stories of the summer. We are having a great time. We did just have our talent show on Friday, and we had one of our students, he's a little bit shyer, and we did not think he would participate, but he wanted to, and he wanted to dance. And that was very, very big for him. So the day it came, we didn't really think he would dance. We didn't think he'd go out there, but we were hopeful. Well, he got out there, and he stood there, and he was scared, and didn't know what to do, and all the kids started cheering for him, saying his name, and then he started dancing, which erupted into a huge dance party with all of the kids. The custodian staff came in, our staff started dancing, and it was one of the best Fridays we possibly could have had as a group, and it really celebrated what Adventure Club is, what the summer is, really child-led, spontaneous fun that we have.
So I don't have a closing, which is good, because we're out of time, but I'll get my stuff. Thank you all so much for listening. Our future is nothing without joy, and we really do try to bring joy into our work, and it's virtually impossible not to when you consider the children that we have. Really the blessings to be able to serve. So I don't know if there's questions or we'll end this.
Just a quick question, do you think Adventure Club will be staffed fully when school starts in August?
We are not staffed fully, but we're very close. It'll be staffed.
Thank you, Sandy. That's good to hear.
David, did you, Joe?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Ladies, thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Very much.
Great job.
Awesome. Lauren, how'd you get out of this?
I know. We told her she couldn't, and she was really mad, right? Could you tell her that?
Well, you all were very patient to wait as long as you did, and you don't have to stay around to hear anything more from us. If you want to go ahead and go, you're welcome to do that.
Thanks, Mark.
Martin, thank you very much for
Outstanding job.
coordinating and everything, and all your work, and the data and everything's super. We appreciate that. And just for you, though, that continue to want to look a little bit more, I really think there's some other impactful information if you get a chance to look at it, especially about the at-risk children and the data there. It's really compelling stuff, and even if we didn't get a chance to really talk about that, but it's really, really important that these kids get some ground game early in their educational formation. So please take a look at that and see Marty with additional questions for recommended readings and research, things like that. So John and Kathy are going to take us through our communications survey.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted you to give an update. We sent you all of the responses from the survey. We had the survey out there. We worked through the development of the survey with you. We pushed it out through a lot of different means, through social media, through email. We actually printed the idea of the key communicators in the Webster Kirkwood Times, and we had a number of people who would either mail it in or would physically bring it into our office.
Give us an estimate, how many of the
responses.
700 were print?
708 brought in through the Webster Kirkwood Times, I would say maybe 10.
Yeah.
So not a lot. Sherry would then go ahead and input those. I told her just keep them, just in case somebody asks whether we got them or we inputted them. So, but 708 responses, I felt
So
really...
you're saying 10 paper copies and all the rest came through the electronics?
Yeah, very few. We also pushed out, in the Webster Kirkwood Times, they could go to a link that they saw in the Times.
Right.
But yeah, very few people physically cut out the Times and brought it back in. Yeah. The responses that we got, so currently I'm working on, with Kathy, the best way to publish them. Because we're gonna publish every single graph, every single comment that everybody made. So we'll share that and we make sure that we get it out. It's a little bit hard to do, clunky with my level of knowledge. I'll talk to Bill and some people, but I found a couple different add-ons in Google that I might be able to use to push out the information, but we'll make sure everybody gets to see everything. Overall, we found the survey to be quite informative. So again, you've seen the data and you've seen the information. Best ways for people to get information. Facebook was number one, followed by the district website, and then the Webster Kirkwood Times, and our schools were closely second. So again, not a lot of differentiation, but Twitter, email certainly falls a little bit down the wayside from those avenues. Best way for us to get information is certainly pushing out surveys to people just like we did. It was an overwhelming favorite, followed by emails, and certainly we emailed the survey. So the best way to get information from people, those were the avenues. Social media was number 3, followed by meetings or just impromptu conversations. Just, hey, what do you think? What do you think about the district? Town hall meetings and informal gatherings came after that. Feel there are important opportunities for you to express your concerns and opinions. 75% of the people felt that there were. 11% didn't know. 10%, 11% disagreed. And then 2% strongly disagreed. So I think overall people felt comfortable expressing their concerns and opinions. Certainly a group that does not.
Did any of the people who said that they didn't feel they had adequate opportunities identify themselves in any way such that we could follow up with them and find out how we might... am I right in thinking that there was an opportunity for people to put their names on this if they wanted to?
There was not an opportunity.
There wasn't? Okay.
No. We had talked about that, but ultimately we didn't have them put their names down.
Were they offered the opportunity to elaborate on why they disagreed?
No, they were not. There was a section where you could certainly see responses that highlighted problems that they had.
It would perhaps be good
in the
when we
future
do this
to put names.
Next time if we give an opportunity for people just to expand on that one, because whilst I agree it's great that most people think
right.
they're there, I'd love to know.
Absolutely.
15% is a decent or a decent enough number that I'd like to know what they feel is missing there.
Yeah, I agree. Opportunities for you to contribute to decisions being made. This was lower than I thought. Only 50% agreed, 7% strongly agreed. About 18% said no. About 20% said they didn't know. So again, I think some of the themes that came through this is clearly people want to know, and here it is. We want to We want to know about curriculums and program information. That came through as number one. Secondly, we want to just always tell us what your rationale is for decision making. Those were the two dominant things that we want to hear from the school district. There was a lot, people didn't have to select one, they could select multiple, but those were the ones that came out. So I think clear to us is more curriculum and programs. We talked about that at the board level. Also, how are we clearly articulating a rationale whenever we make decisions? Administrators, board level. Again, it didn't mean that it was absent, but it means that's really important.
Are you able to, so you said in the front, the majority of the people who responded have children in the district. What percentage was that? I apologize.
No, it's okay. 84%.
Okay, so it's the
I have or will have.
And do you have a way of tying back whether people have children in the, because that would,
What the responses
as
were?
you come back to give us the
it,
responses, that would be interesting to understand how that breaks down.
Yeah, we will do that.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, we do have that. Overall performance, again, a really strong number. People feel really good about the schools. I think I always say, I think we're a good school district. I think we're a great school district comparatively. So I personally probably would have ranked us at a 4th. I think we could have a lot of room for improvement. Felt good about that. As far as the financial situation, 50, and again, this is where, I've told somebody who have reached out to me in the community about some of the being a little bit more scientific with this information. I said it really wasn't designed to be overly scientific, or else we would have defined what does it mean to be very informed and the such. But we had 10% felt very informed about the finances, 58 felt somewhat informed, 32 not so much. And then how efficiently do you think the district spends their tax dollars? 20% very, 47 somewhat efficiently. 26% didn't know, and there were 7.5 that said they didn't think we spent it efficiently. So then we gave them the information about, and there wasn't a whole lot of themes, but where do you think you should focus the tax dollars to continually improve the quality of education for students? A lot of it was just, getting the teachers what they want, making sure the resources and materials are available. There was a number of people that mentioned stuff regarding, spending money on, issues related to equity, making sure we're dedicating dollars there. And then down here, again, I already gave that demographic information. You could see Webster Groves, the majority of people who responded were Webster Groves folks, 76% of the respondents. 10% were Rock Hill, followed by Shrewsbury and such. Down here is the anything else you like to add. So there was definitely a lot of, this is more constructive feedback, criticism. Certainly there was some just keep up the great works. But there was a lot of ideas or, the things to me that dominated. There was some keep up, communications improving, but it's clear that communication. There was also a number of comments related to the middle school. Let's make sure we attend to the middle school. Those were the two things that kind of stood out the most. So I think the information was very valuable. We'll look at it a little bit, break it down a little bit more for some of those things. And again, as we continue to assess the community and their thoughts on us, we'll continue to throw these items out there with some tweaks to how we can make it better, but trying to get a consistent number to try and move the needle on the measures that we want moved. Kathy, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. That's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Are you sharing it with principals? I understand in a week we'll have several new ones on board, and they might be interested in seeing the comments especially.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we are finding a way to how to push this information out so everybody can see it. Just the easiest way, because it would be really simple if I could just open this page up and people could just click on it, but you can't. At least Bill, thank you for shaking your head no. You just can't. It would be great if you shook your head the other way. But I found I found one add-on that you could do everything, but you just can't do the comments for only reason they only add like 10 comments. But I know there aren't many people, but there'll be enough people who want to read the comments to make sure we get the comments on it.
I think it's great that you're putting all the comments out there.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to be positive, some will be negative, but just in terms of what we're always trying to do in terms of being open, I think it's important that those get out there, so thank you.
Yeah.
Quickly, the biggest reinforcement that you thought you would expect from this, and then the biggest surprise that you got from this? I know that's kind of an on-the-spot question.
No. I think the biggest reinforcement is so much about, you've got to be good stewards with money, you got to do good work for kids in the classroom, but just communication, just always, how are you improving and attending to the needs of people, and you have all these different group of people, and thinking through what are the messages that each person, each group needs to hear, and how are we getting them communicating through the channels that they like to receive the communication. So that was probably the most reinforcing to me. I think probably the thing that surprised me the most was this one, to contribute to decisions being made. Like I feel like we, coming from a different district, I feel like we do a really good job. I know there's room for improvement, but I was shocked that we only had 57% who felt that they contribute to decisions being made. Now again, we didn't, or that there were opportunities. Not that I do it, but there's opportunities. So I just think clearly communicating, how can we seek further input and ideas, such as we did with this survey, and how can we, again, that's not the only needle, but I was shocked that it was only about half the people.
But I wonder what they thought about, what kind of decisions were they actually working on? Were they working on Bruce's budget numbers, or were they adding ideas to the classroom that would trickle up to us?
Yeah, so maybe breaking it out to school-based versus district-based would be informative.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, again, with communication, there was district-wide, but there was also a push for how can we be more consistent in my child's school. Like, I've got all this great information, we experience it sometimes, and then all of a sudden it's radio silence when you hit this grade level or you hit this level. So how can we be more consistent? Yeah.
I would hope that one will reflect as we try to do, both you and the administration, we as a board try to do more things to, give people an opportunity to meet with folks, that number will increase and improve over time.
Yeah. Well, and I think through, if we're focused on communication, one, they want to know the rationale. So we're having these board conversations so that you can give thoughts and ideas on this that we're exploring as a board. So just how are we interweaving all these important concepts with how we communicate, so. It's good information.
Any additional comments or questions for Kathy or John? Okay, we'll come to our second opportunity for public comments, if anybody would like to make a public comment. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda items.
I move consent agenda items 15A, 15B, 15C, 15D, 15E, 15F, 15G, parts 1, 2, and 3.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Joe, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'll now entertain a motion to recess into executive session.
No, we
don't need to.
We
We're
did
done.
cover everything?
Yep. Yes.
I
Okay,
make a
good.
motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none.
I think we should give special recognition to Mr. Cussman, who
Yeah.
sat through the entire darn thing.
I was wondering if you'd give us a recap of the budget outlook.
Well said. Eyes are going about.